Hello everybody, this is Gregory with How I Lost Over 100 Pounds and I've kept it off for 30 plus years, where there should be no hesitance in your weight loss and weight maintenance. Today we're going to talk about the do's and don'ts of hummus. Now, before we begin, if you need help with weight loss, contact me through the Clarity FM link found here in the episode notes. Check out my website, which has hundreds of articles and recipes. Check out my books, which you can find on Amazon. And if you like podcasts, I have The Awakened Man, which is very health specific. And I also have The Cinema Rag, which is on movies. And lastly, if you appreciate my content, there's a link for PayPal. So this is an ongoing series of do's and don'ts. I'll try to put in banners for the one we did recently on chocolate and on nut butters. Hummus I'm doing because I personally like hummus. Secondly, hummus is much more popular now than it was like 5 years ago. And for good reasons. We have an episode here on what to eat, what not to eat at Middle Eastern restaurants. And I talk about there that kind of cuisine is probably my favorite cuisine. And so you look at that, I have a little confirmation bias, but also hummus is grown in popularity. But like with all foods that are perceived to be healthy or superfoods, there's perils that are with these foods. And I would not say in general hummus is a superfood, unlike, let's say, tea, coffee, avocado, dark chocolate or cacao, and some of the other superfoods, cruciferous vegetables and so forth. But it does have a place. If you look at the nutritional profile of hummus, it's mostly chickpeas, which are lentils or garbanzo beans, which are a good source of protein, a good source of fiber, especially for a plant-based food. And if you're, in particular, if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, it's even more important to get the plant-based protein. You know, we don't want to be a junk food vegan who's eating Cheetos. There's an old picture of the fat meat-eating people asking the skinny vegetarians, where do you get your protein from? But it is important that we do get protein. So if you look at hummus has a decent amount of the aforementioned. It's just with hummus, you do have to be careful on a couple of things. One, just like we talked about with nut butters, the serving size is not as big as we like to think. Okay, so when you look at the back of hummus, and like with all foods, you got to look at the nutritional information in the ingredient list. So when it comes to nutritional information, the typical serving size is maybe 2 tablespoons. So it's not like half of the container. So we do need to be wary of that. And unlike chocolate and nut butter, which is very high in calories, it's not like hummus is super high in calories. But again, it's like if you're eating the entire canister of something, you still have a disordered relationship with food because there's no reason. You should just be eating a sample size or a serving size. So when you look at the ingredients, like with anything that is processed and sitting in the grocery store for some time, it's going to have preservatives. And I've talked about it in previous episodes, the problems and dangers of preservatives. Potassium sorbate, there's tons of sodium nitrite you find in bacon that's linked to colon cancer. There are definitely problematic issues with these things. Absolutely. So ideally, you want to make your own hummus. Making hummus today is not as hard as it used to be because you can just buy chickpeas. There's tons of recipes out there. And they even sell, like Bush Beans sells the packet, the tahini packet. So really you just got to get the beans, the tahini. So you have to get the garbanzo beans or chickpeas, whatever you're going to use, and then just pour in the sauce, pour in the Bush bean hummus maker, and you can do that. But I think it's better just to make everything from scratch because the ingredients are going to be cleaner. You get to pick the ingredients, which is just as important, and you get to make it the way you want. If you want it to be more garlic-based hummus, if you want it to be more olives in it, if you want it to be, the spicier stuff, that's completely up to you. Now, if you don't feel like you have the artistry in the kitchen to make your own hummus, or you just don't have the motivation to do it, that's fine. Then buy the store-bought. I would tell you with the store-bought, again, there's going to be ways that they try to trick you. Like I talked about in the dark chocolate episode with milk chocolate, where cocoa is the third ingredient. They'll do the same thing with hummus. You got to be very careful. So if you're buying like the cheapest brands out there, they don't even have tahini as the second ingredient. Sometimes they have just garbage, and they'll put in less tahini because if you've made your own hummus, tahini is expensive. It can be expensive. So like with how they put in high fructose corn syrup instead of cane sugar in sodas, they want to make hummus as cheap as possible, but also as kind of like addictive as possible, and in that they want you to keep buying the product. So you have to look out for some of the bait and switches that they're doing the ingredients. So make sure that tahini is the second ingredient behind chickpeas. Also make sure olive oil is in there, not water. Sometimes water is the third ingredient, and you want it to be olive oil because, hummus and olive oil go hand in hand. So you want to look at that. And look, you're not going to find unless you find organic hummus, you're not going to find a hummus typically that doesn't have some of the preservatives in it. It's going to be typically the last ingredients in it. You can try to find the more organic ones, but the organic ones are just going to use organic chickpeas, and as a whole, lentils are not absorbing as much pesticides as some of the dirty dozen produce. But if you want to get organic, of course you can get organic. But I would tell you, just watch out for the bait and switches on the ingredients, because you definitely want tahini up there at the top and you want olive oil at the top. Now, in terms of what you should eat it with, I mean, look, if you go to a Middle Eastern restaurant, you go to a Greek restaurant, they're going to give it to you with naan or with pita. That's kind of the classic way to eat it. Bread is great. You know, I love going to a Middle Eastern and eating it with the warm naan. Nutritionally speaking, it's not the best. So ideally, if you're going to eat hummus, you want to eat it with the vegetables. You want to eat it with celery, cucumber slices, because both of those really have no nutrition at all. You can do it with carrots. You can do it with bell pepper slices. Those are all fine, and those are all better than bread. And really, they're all better than chips. You've seen now we've created pita chips, right? But pita chips have no nutrition. That's just flour that's crushed up. And I would tell you, if you're going to eat it with something chippy, chip-esque, probably go with blue corn chips, because blue corn tortilla chips tend to be the most nutrient dense of the chips. But ideally, you want to eat it with vegetables. So guys, these are just some tips for hummus. In closing, it's a great, tasty treat. Make it on your own. That's the ideal way to eat it. And ideally, eat it with vegetables. Guys, post in the comments. Let me know how often you eat hummus. And lastly, avoid the chocolate hummus, because the chocolate hummus, I don't even think tastes that good, but also it does have more sugar. And we do want to keep our sugar low. Guys, post in the comments. I'd like to hear from you. Until next time, take care. God bless and pray.